To an education expert, parents and guardians should keep the lines of communication open as more learners are expected to resume classes in the next few weeks. Although schools are familiar spaces for children, a lot has shaped in those spaces. Their behavior will now be heavily monitored as they live in perpetual fear of infection. Joining us now for a conversation around this is John Louis, Head of Academics at ADvTECH. John, thank you so much for your time. Now, as ADvTECH, your group manages a number of schools across the country. How have you prepared your institutions for the return of students to schools?
Yes, so we have clearly followed the regulations that have been put out by the Ministry of Health and made sure that those regulations and those new procedures that we have in our school, from social distancing to wearing masks, we haven't just given the directives to the students in terms of how they need to behave, but we've engaged them on the reasons why those procedures and those new structures are in place. Our students have reached out to us, and even though they are going back to the physical classroom, it is not the same physical classroom for them. So they're going through a whole lot of times of an uncertainty, and their emotions range from anger to just resentment and frustration. So it's really important that every school make sure that they just, when the students arrive, that they're not back into the classroom and into the first lesson, but they actually spend a few days engaging the students as to what was, what currently is, and what they can expect in the future, and engage them into reasons why, and also try and get their input in terms of if the procedures and the structures could be improved in the school. Really getting the students to buy into and understand those new, the new processes that are in place.
Now, as it relates to keeping communication channels open, how can parents ensure that their voice is more prevalent than social media, for instance? Now, if you look at these two scenarios, we have some children that are back at school, and they are getting first-hand information from their educators, their teachers, and their parents. But you have those that are not back at school yet. They're still relying on social media. And then they obviously also hear stories about what's happening at schools from those that are back at school. So the anxiety must be prevalent as far as they're concerned. How can parents make sure that they keep the conversation and they contextualize what they're seeing and what they're reading?
I think the very most important thing is that parents should go according to facts, according to evidence, according to science. You know, that always is a rational objective to the argument that you're putting on the table. If you go according to hype, it sometimes is skewed, the argument, and rather just put the facts on the table. This is what science says. If we behave in this particular way, if we do our social distancing, if we do our masks, then we scientifically, we're told we are relatively safe. Nobody is 100% safe, but we are certainly safeguarding ourselves as much as possible. And then we need to encourage the students to go to school. There are students that have very difficult situations because of their health, and they are not able to go to school. And in our group of schools, we are very fortunate because we are a premium group of schools, and we have been able to offer a very strong online offering. So our current students that are sitting at home are getting the same lessons that the students are getting in the classroom. It is streamed live. But I understand that is not the case across all of our schools in our country. And those students that are not able to go to school, their anxiety levels are absolutely through the roof. I would ask parents to engage the school and to really try and understand how the schools can assist those students that aren't able to go to school by way of, a parent might be able to just go to the school to collect the material that needs to be worked through by the students, but to disengage disengage from the school completely is not the solution. If your child is not able to attend class, you must still, as a parent or as a student, engage the school to understand how you can benefit regardless.
Now, no two children are alike. Academically, some children are coping while others are not. What measures can schools and parents put in place to ensure that their children feel in control?
Yeah, it's very important that more than ever we talk about assessment for learning rather than the summative assessment that literally just passes judgment. So we've increased our assessment for learning, which is about small moments of checking for understanding, and it's more of a monitoring and tracking process rather than a just teach, and then at the end of 3 weeks give a summative task, which then it's too late to intervene. So we have a very strict approach to assessment where we are lessening the focus on the summative, which is if you like, the big tests, the major assignments, and we're increasing the focus on ongoing small check for understandings. And we've also increased our focus in terms of our support for the students, where from those check for understanding moments, the data that we get, we then intervene as soon as we can to try and assist. So if a teacher's delivering a lesson online with 25, 30, 40 students on the other side, often and sometimes in the physical classroom as well, often many students have not got it. And what these quick check for understanding moments do is they give the teacher a real sense of where the students are at after a lesson. It then allows the teacher to engage either with smaller groups or with individual students to ensure that they're on task.
Now, prior to the opening of schools, there was a lot of resistance from parents and unions and other groups. Now that several schools have closed down in several provinces, and about 38, I think, in Gauteng, should parents be worried? Are you comfortable with the Department of Education and how it's handling this matter?
I think the Department of Education is leaning heavily on the Ministry of Health. And whatever decisions they make, they need to make the decisions that are in the best interest of the students. What the department, in my opinion, should not do is make unilateral decisions that apply to all schools. Every case needs to be handled individually and separately and, understood really well, and experts need to be brought in to advise and guide, as opposed to. So if a school has a particular case, whatever it is, then that school needs to be looked at as a separate individual entity and a solution found for that particular school, rather than making unilateral decisions across all schools.
Now, a number of businesses, as well as South Africans at large, we've had to adopt to a new normal approach. What are some things that educators need to do differently during this time? In fact, even students.
For many years, education has been that space which has always struggled to transition and stay abreast of the rest of the world. And what the COVID-19 has done for those schools that have been able to offer an online offering, it has expedited that transition. And so in any particular school, when you've had 20% of teachers excited about engaging with technology and using technology for lessons, you now have many more teachers excited about it. Education is in a very interesting space, and we're all thinking about what it will look like even now, where we are having to, in all of our schools, where we are having to stream live. You can imagine a teacher that's used to teaching in a classroom with just children. Now she's got to worry about the children that are in her classroom. She's got to worry about the children that may be in an adjacent classroom because students may have had to split into different venues. And she's got to worry about students that are at home. So we've had to build in infrastructure in our schools that allows teachers to be able to work with all the students in the different venues. And what this has highlighted is just as we are working through these new spaces, we realize new opportunities in education. And I really don't think that we're going to go back to the same old. And I'm talking about those schools that do have the infrastructure and the ability to move with technology faster.